Hello again. Welcome to another Fresh from the Theater review. Today, I just got out of seeing Evil Dead Rise. Now, before I begin, I just gotta say, I'm a huge fan of the Evil Dead franchise. I got a poster for the first film hanging proudly on my bedroom wall. And the second one, which I actually saw first on Turner Classic Movies during one of their middle of the night weekend showings, was a real eye-opener of a horror comedy. And Army of Darkness, it's a kick-ass, not so much horror, but more of an action movie with horror elements. And I loved it a lot. Bruce Campbell really grew into the part of Ash, and I never saw the Ash vs. Evil Dead TV show, just because it's usually hard for me to get into TV shows, but I did recently watch the 2013 Evil Dead remake, just so I could be fully immersed in all the Evil Dead cinematic ventures, and well, I wouldn't say it really scared me. I do think it worked very well. It was definitely extremely suspenseful, and there were a few characters I cared about, and the gore was fucking extraordinary. Definitely lived up to the blood of the first two movies. So I heard that there was a new Evil Dead coming out, and I didn't see many previews for this beyond the 15-second ads that were like running on YouTube and whatnot. So I didn't know a ton of what to expect, and I think that was for the best, just going into this semi-blind, just not knowing exactly what to expect. And this movie was, I feel, a worthy follow-up to the earlier films. Just to be clear, there is no returning character from any of the previous films, not the remake or the original series. The closest thing we get that connects is there's a Book of the Dead in it. I will say, I was a little mixed at first. The opening scene was fucking excellent. It was a great opening scene to kick things off, to let you know that there would definitely be blood, and there would be no mercy for any of the characters. However, it did something that I didn't realize until I started watching midnight screenings with Brad Jones, hence where I get the inspiration for the car setup. It did something that, when you really think about it, can sometimes not be the best way to open a film unless you do it very well, which is after the opening scene, then saying one or a couple days earlier. And I was curious, because that doesn't bother me as much as it does other people, but I was really curious because very quickly we see that none of the main characters of this new film are in the opening scene, and the tie-in to that opening scene doesn't happen until the very last scene of the film, and I'll be honest, it was a pretty weak tie-in. I mean, it's a great opening scene, but the way they tied it in was not the strongest. And for the first 30 to 40 minutes of this movie, I was kind of nervous because I wasn't exactly feeling scared or that invested in what was happening, and everything seemed a bit different. Like, I know you don't want everything to be the same, but you want enough familiarity with the earlier movies to really get into it. So I wasn't exactly sure just how much connection there was going to be. I was afraid this was going to give off the vibe of an entirely different script that they just slapped Evil Dead onto. But once the halfway point was reached and the demonic shit started coming about from the Book of the Dead, then the film really started to come alive, and I was invested to the end to see what was going to happen. The premise is, and the title comes from the fact that, unlike the other films, which are all set at a cabin in the woods or in medieval times, this one takes place in a high-rise apartment building. And at first I was not sure what to think, because the opening made it look like it was going to be the good old cabin in the woods. And I know, again, they want to try something different. They don't want to just repeat the original, but the familiar setting almost seemed like it was going to be a good setting. But after a while, the high-rise, because a high-rise can always be, if done well, it can be a good horror movie setting, and after a little bit I started to get into it. And the main characters are this family, this mom named Ellie, played by Alyssa Sutherland, who's recently been dumped by her husband, and all she has are her kids, Bridget, Danny, and Cassie, and her sister Beth, she keeps calling her a groupie, mostly as an insult, but she's like a guitar and machine person. She comes back after being on the road for a long fucking time. She greets the family. They all seem happy to see, like, this is clear, this is a hard rock family, but they still, they're not exactly that close, and it's been a while, and then there's an earthquake that opens a hole in, like, it's established this apartment is very run down, and a hole opens up in the ground, revealing a hidden bank vault tomb where the son, Danny, discovers the Book of the Dead out of curiosity, because curiosity is the ultimate killer in these films. He takes the book from this ancient tomb that they find under the apartment, and along with some vinyl, and he's a vinyl buff, so lucky or unlucky how you look at it. He puts on this old record, and we hear the voice of, not a professor this time, but a priest reading the incantations to awaken the demons, the deadites. They never say deadites in this film, as far as I could hear. And sure enough, it's all awakened. And once the demon shit started, that's when the movie really started to take off, and I really got into it. And the effects in this film, like, that's the main thing that's important. How are the blood and gore effects? The gore, well, it's not like non-stop, but when it comes in the second half, they really go in. We got girls becoming possessed and eating broken glass. We got scissors in the nose. We got cheese graters on the skin. We just got all types of nasty... We got kids vomiting up bugs. And the whole idea is the first person possessed is the mother. And from there, it just... she goes after the kids. And I was glad that they actually were willing to kill the kids to show that they had the guts to go that far, that they weren't gonna puss out. And from there, it's a matter of who's gonna get possessed next, and will anyone make it out alive. And, well, I wouldn't say it has the full balls out insanity of, say, the first movie or Evil Dead 2. It definitely had the cojones to really get grisly, and the effects are... it looked pretty practical most of the time. It looked like maybe they used CGI only when they had to. And I thought it looked pretty good. We got the red blood, the black blood. There's a wonderful elevator scene that feels like a tribute, especially when the doors open. Tribute to the fucking Shining, which I can appreciate wholeheartedly. And I think the main cast, like, the main cast of the original Evil Dead, aside from Bruce Campbell, definitely weren't the most three-dimensional or the most extremely well acted. And they don't go all 3D characters here, but they give enough to where you do give a shit, and the ones who die, you kind of feel like it's like a John Carpenter movie. Most of the main cast can die, but it doesn't feel like a character was wasted. It feels like the right ones went at the right time. Although, personally, I think the best scenario would have been having maybe a more tragic everyone goes type of ending, or, you know, a little bit of a cliffhanger and then they follow it up later like the original two movies. There is a slight cliffhanger, but it's basically just a lead-in to the opening scene that I feel there could have been a stronger connection between the two. But overall, it was the first 30 minutes are not the best, but once we get into the possessions and the blood, it becomes full-on Evil Dead. And the writer and director of this film is a guy named Lee Cronin, who hasn't directed, he's only directed one movie before this. It was a few years ago. I think he did a pretty good job. He did enough of the original, but he tried a lot of new stuff, and I was iffy at first, but I got into it. Last time I'll say that, I got into it. And they brought back so many of the important moments. They had the possessed mother, Ellie, going, "I'll swallow your soul." We have a shotgun. We got a chainsaw. So we got all the important stuff in there. The only things I guess I could say are a little, on the, downside would be the youngest kid, Cassie. While they do use her well near the end, there were a few moments, and I know she's a little kid, but there were a few moments where she made some, like, there is so much scary, fucked up shit going on that even if you're a little kid, you would know not to do certain things, like open a door with a monster on the other side. And of course, we get the traditional idiot opens the Book of the Dead, plays the recording, and I don't know, this Book of the Dead looked a lot freakier than even the original, and all I could think was, you'd think by this point in human development, people would know, you find a book that looks this fucked up, get rid of it. Just get the fuck rid of it. Like, there were so many red flags to this goddamn thing. Also, and I'm not going full spoilers here, but I will say, there is no cameo from Bruce Campbell in this. Maybe that was mentioned in the press tours or something, but I don't know. The 2013 movie included Bruce, so very brief, but they included him, so it's a little shame that they didn't have him come on for at least a groovy at the very end. But once everything starts going tits up, that's when the movie comes alive. And unlike the 2013 movie, this film actually had some legit scary moments. Like the mother, the sing-songy voice, the creepy smiles, the way they looked when they were possessed. They were extremely well handled, so yeah, I give this movie, I wouldn't say it's as good as the original trilogy. I'd say it's on par, maybe a little more than the 2013 remake. Yeah, I definitely recommend checking it out. If you're an Evil Dead fan, I do think you'll get into it. I just hope that if they do another, maybe show a little more connection to the original, but hey, we got a hard rock chick with a blood-soaked chainsaw, so there's potential, and that's all I have to say. Hope you enjoyed my little fresh thoughts rambling here, and I will see you again hopefully soon.
Groovy.